Wait. Hello? Can everybody hear me? Can you guys settle down, please? Guys? All right, thank you. Can you guys hear me in the back okay? Is it too loud or is it good? All right, looks like we're good. All right, so welcome guys to the second lecture for the Rails Decal. Today we're gonna talk about routing and static pages. But first off, just some logistics. People who asked to be on the wait list last week, you should have already received an email from me. And if you're new this week and you still want to get in the class or get on the wait list, just let me come to me after class. If you're not on the Piazza group, let me know after class and I'll try to get you on it. That's where a lot of the information will be posted on. And like the pin slide, the pin post has all the links to lectures and the links to the webcasts and other important information. Another thing is, starting this week, we'll start doing check-in codes. This is how we track your attendance. And if you don't remember from last week, basically you can't miss more than 4 classes or it's a no pass. And there, an update about the homework. Just a quick poll. How many people are done with the homework? Okay, that's a good amount. How many people are done but don't know how to turn in the homework? Okay, that's still a good amount of people. So I will just go over that really quickly. I should get this out of the way. Okay, so first, to start the homework, let's go to GitHub. And on it, if you go to our Rails Decal repository, you could find homework 1. To start it, you just have to click the fork button. I'll fork it to my repository. So now I have a copy of the homework on my local GitHub account after this finishes. Okay, so now I have these files on my GitHub account. How do I get them on my computer? Yeah, just open up your terminal. Find a place to put it. I'll just put it in my tutorials folder. It just has a bunch of tutorials I did. I'm going to first copy the URL, or you just copy the link that's here. And I will make this bigger. Okay, so the command is git clone, and just paste the link. And after it's finished cloning, that's it means you got copies of the file. Just cd into the folder, so cd into fall 15, homework 1. And now there's your homework. Let's say I'm in the middle of doing it. I just make my attempt. I open up the file and make changes, right? Save the file. So now that I have the changes, how do I submit the homework? First, wait, actually, just a quick, I might have asked this last week, but how many people don't know how to use Git? Okay, that's a good amount of people. Okay, so this is a perfect lesson to do it right now. So what Git is a version control system. It basically allows you to keep like whatever your main code is or your production code is, and it lets you keep it off to the side, and you could start your own branch, which is basically like a copy of the code where you could edit, and you have, it's like a playground where you can edit and test out all the code you write, and when it's ready, then you could basically merge that code into your production branch. And first I made a change, right, to foobar.rb. How do I keep the change within my Git? I just do git add which git add says keep track of these files. So I could either specify foobar or a shortcut that you could just use as, when you're starting out, just use a period, which is just basically follow all the file, like basically add all the files in my current directory and all the subdirectories. And if you run git status, it will show you which files have been modified and are ready to be committed. So the commit is basically saying the actual change. So what you have to type is git commit. Sorry, it kind of wraps around, but it says git commit. -m is a flag that says leave a message for the commit. Usually when you're working with the team, you want this message to kind of summarize the change you made so that when people look back, they know what you were doing, or like it's a quick flag about, oh, I made this change. But since I just wrote garbage, I'm just gonna write a garbage message. And then now you have basically that commit, you basically committed your change to the repository. And what to do now to push it back up for us to see is run the command git push. So git push says, take all the changes I made locally and push it somewhere else. And we have to specify what that something else is. And that something else right now is called origin. Origin is basically automatically set when you clone a repository. So git push origin pushes the code back to where I cloned it. And the last argument is head, which you don't need to know now at all, but it basically means push it onto the current branch you're on. So if you see, I have my terminal set up so it automatically records what branch I'm on, and it says master. And if you do git branch, you could just see whatever branch you're on, it has a star next to it. But so what I'm trying to say is when you say git push origin head, I'm saying push my changes to the remote repository, which is the GitHub fork I made. And since I'm using head, which means current branch, push it onto the master branch. So git push origin head, bam. And if I refresh this, I could see that you can see my commit logs, this change I made, right? And now you can see that I've edited this amount of code. So now how do we find the information? So if you go to railsdecal.com and, oh, that's not good. Okay, so you go to the homework assignment. Oh, okay. So normally there's a box that appears to submit the assignment if you're a student, but since I'm an instructor account, the box doesn't show up. But if the box doesn't show up for you, that means in our system, you're not tagged as a student, you're just tagged as like a person with an account on a website. So if you don't see a box that says submit a link, just send us an email with your GitHub account and the email associated with your GitHub account, and we will set that up for you. Any questions? Yeah.
Can we check if we submitted it properly?
If you submit it properly, so you know what? I'll just make myself a student right now. Heroku run Rails C -app Rails Decal. Just for the sake of the example. U equals user.find by email poweredxchen@gmail.com. U.add role for current semester students. And now it should be, so this is what, if you're a student, this is what your assignment page is supposed to look like. So if you haven't submitted anything, the button will say submit assignment. And I put in the link to my assignment. If I click submit assignment, this text will say, oh, I successfully submitted. And to check to see if it's actually there, this button will now change to update submission instead of submit assignment. Does that make sense? All right, perfect. So let me get back to the lecture. Oh yeah. That works too. Yeah, for the sake of what we're doing, that works too. Okay, so yeah. You could clone the repo and then create a new repo on your account and change where origin points. Or you could just add a new remote. Feel free to do whatever, as long as you just hand us the link and that link leads us to the changes you have made. All right. So continue on. How many of you guys successfully installed Rails and you're able to run Rails server, and when you looked at localhost 3000, everything worked? All right, a good amount of you. How many of you guys actually looked around in the folders? Okay, that's totally fine, because that's what I'm about to talk about now. The structure of a Rails application, and just a broad overview since we just downloaded into our computers. So the main folders you want to watch out for is, one of them is app. An app basically contains all the logic that is needed to make your Rails server run. And basically, if you look in your app folder, you'll see folders like models, views, controllers, and that basically contains all the logic you need in your MVC framework. And there's another thing that you see in app is assets. Assets is basically all your JavaScript, your CSS, and your images just to make your website really pretty. Another important folder is DB. What DB has is your configurations to connect to your database. And you want to think about your database as something that's actually independent of your Rails application. You could have an application and easily swap out databases, or you could keep the same database that has all your data. And let's say you have a product, right? And it's Rails right now. You could just swap out the Rails portion of it and change it to some other web framework you want. Let's say you realize that you want to use Node instead, but you want to lose all your data. Then it's really easy. You just have to take out the Rails app. What DB does is it gives Rails configurations to find your database and access the data. The last file is not your last one, but another important one is your config file. Your config file basically contains, it contains your configurations. It contains secret keys, stuff like that. And the most important file that you're gonna work with this semester is the routes.rb file. And the routes.rb file is a file that tells your Rails app what to do every time it receives an incoming request. And finally, the last file that you want to worry about is your gem file. A gem, in case you don't remember, is a Ruby library. And a gem file basically manages all your application's dependencies, because you don't want to rewrite every single function that already exists in a web application. Someone else has probably made it for you. All you have to do is just write the name of that gem in your gem file, and it will handle downloading it and using it properly for you. We'll get into more detail about all of these later. So a very useful command that you guys should know is Rails console. You might have actually just seen me run Rails console just to change myself to a student. And what Rails console allows you to do is run your Ruby application without the views. Basically, you get all your classes, all your functions, basically every way to access and permutate your data, but you don't have to mess around going through all these views to set it up. It's also very useful for debugging or just basically making quick queries. Do we have any questions so far? Yeah.
So like to run the Rails console, you have to have a new like Rails application first?
Yeah, it could only run in a Rails application folder. Because when you word Rails console, and some of you guys use Rails console, you could just Rails C as a shortcut for it. It will look to see if there's like a gem file, and also look to see, it'll look in your database directory. If you remember me talking about DB before, it'll look in your DB, look in how to connect to your DB, or basically how to connect to your database. Because with your Rails console, you're supposed to be able to grab the data with it. And without those files, Rails console will flop. Any more questions? All right. And something that you guys already ran is Rails server. Rails server basically says, okay, start my application locally. It will default to port 3000, but let's see. So there are other commands you could use. It's something you guys probably won't have to do in this class, but just to show you as an example, because there's a Piazza question about it. Railsdecal.com. So this Railsdecal, Railsdecal.com is, this whole thing basically contains all the code that allows our website to work. And if I want to start a local version, right, I could do Rails server, but Rails S is a shortcut for it. And it could take flags like -p, right? -p basically means port. So I could say, instead of going to 3000, I could port it on port 3002. Hopefully that will fire up real fast. Takes a little bit. And then you can see it started up. And then when I go here, I put localhost 3, instead of 3000, I put 3002. This is the Rails Decal website running locally on my computer. So if I sign in with GitHub, I have an account. Unlike this one, this basically runs on a local database instead of production database. So there are no students in here versus like the one hosted on Heroku actually has all the student information. Okay. I wanted to talk a little bit about object-oriented programming. You don't need to know that much to actually use Rails, but a common thing about Rails is that people will think, oh, it runs on magic. Like, I have no idea how it knows all this information or how it does all these things. And just a quick look at object-oriented programming will kind of help you understand where this magic is coming from. So a quick show of hands, who has no experience doing or never heard of object-oriented programming, have no idea what it is? Oh, okay, that's a small number of you, but just a quick go over about how it actually works. So I'm just gonna go to my home just so it doesn't have a long tail at the end. I'm gonna open up my Ruby interpreter by typing IRB. And first, can anyone here tell me what's the difference between, or have a guess at least of what the difference between a class is and an instance? Yeah.
Does a class define like the general actions, and instance is basically like an object of that class?
Yeah, that's probably better than I can explain it, because when I asked that question, I was like, crap. I actually don't have a really good explanation for this, but I'll show you guys what I mean. So you could define classes in Ruby. Like, for example, we could have a class called animal, right? And on your homework, we basically ask you to define a class function. And to define class functions, you write self dot name of the function. So let's call this function foo. And what it does, it puts, it returns, I am an animal. End. So right now, if we type animal, we have the class animal. And if we type animal.foo, oh, I misspelled animal. Animal.foo, it will return me that string, right? But in object-oriented programming, if you've done 61B at Java, what you don't want the class, you want instances of the object. Like objects have instance variables or basically like values that differ among objects in a class. So for example, I'm going to define a cat. And what it will do, it will inherit from animal, right? I'm going to define a method right now. And this is a very special method. It's called initialize. And what I'm going to do is say an argument name, define @name equals name, and just bear with me, I'm just going to write out the code first before I explain what's happening. And we define meow. And it will return my name. It'll say meow. And what I'm going to do is string interpolate name. And end. Oh, crap. Let's see. Oh, crap. Okay. I know I did wrong. So when you define a class, you don't do define, you do class. And I'm just going to recopy initialize, name, find initialize, name equals name, and I'm going to define meow again. But I'm just going to keep it simple and just return @name and. So now I've defined this cat class. So if I do cat.foo, what do you think will happen? I hear voices, but yeah.
It's going to be
Yeah, because this is object-oriented programming. It will inherit methods from its parent class. So I said cat inherits things from animals, so it takes all the methods from it. Now, what happens when I call cat.meow? Can someone raise their hand and okay, go. It doesn't. So no method defined, but didn't I just define meow? So if you see the meow method up there, which I have defined, it returns @name. @name is what we call an instance variable. Basically, we have a cat class and we have instances of classes. And the instances of the classes basically, in this example, represent different cats. Right now, my cat class doesn't have a name because I only have cat. It doesn't know anything else. And I defined an initialize method. Why is this important? Because cat.new, hi, created this cat, but I did not define a new method. A little bit of Ruby weirdness is that when you call new on a class, it will run its initialize method. That's just a little trick in Ruby that you just have to know. So right now, and another little trick is if you do an underscore, it will give you the last object that was evaluated. So I'm going to attach it to the variable C, this instance of a cat. So if I type cat right now, it gives me a class, but C has an instance, right? And if I do C.meow, this C had its name set in its initialize method because I passed it hi. So @name equals hi. And when you put an @ in front of a variable, when I keep on saying instance variable, what I mean is this instance of a cat, or basically in any of the methods, it has access to this variable. It is like a scope. When I call meow, it will have access to what was assigned to it earlier. So when I do c.meow, it'll just print hi. What are your questions? All right, I guess I'll just chug along. I was supposed to show this slide first. Basically, calling new on the class creates an instance of a class. The logic defined when a class is initialized is defined in this initialize method, and instance variables are always prepended with an @ symbol. This is like just a shorthand of everything I just did. And basically, I also showed you inheritance, where the cat took methods from animal. And this is basically where all the magic occurs, because all your Ruby models, your Ruby controllers, and they will all inherit from base Ruby, base Rails class. And within that Rails class is all the logic that performs all this wizardry. The last thing I wanted to talk about is hash optionals. And the reason I want to talk about this is it's something I see in web development all the time, but actually never seen it in a single like CS class. I might have been just taking the wrong ones, but yeah, so I'll just explain what that is. So what a hash optional is, you could define a method, right? Let's define a method called foo, and it'll take in an argument like a, and the second argument is something I'm just going to call optional. Right? It could be any variable name, but you see this logic I did here. I said optional equals open curly bracket, close curly bracket. That means if I don't pass in anything, it'll automatically initialize me a empty hash map. Do you guys all know what a hash map is? Or who doesn't know what a hash map is? Okay, have you guys gone to dictionaries in 61A yet? Or yeah, so what a hash map is a binding to key value pairs. It's literally like a dictionary. You just look up a key and you get a value out of it. Okay, so what you can do with optionals is, well, first we could do logic on the first argument. Let's just say we just want to print a+1, and next to it, I'm going to ask for another string interpolation called optional word, close bracket, and okay, now define foo. So if you look at, I'll explain what the syntax on the right is. If you remember from last week, a hashtag open curly bracket within a string basically says, put the evaluation of this variable into the string. And what we're going to look up is the variable optional, which is a hash map, and we're looking up for the key word. If it finds a value with finds a value when it looks up the keyword, it'll just put it in there. So let's do first foo 1. We'll put the 2 because it ran a+1, right? But optional that I didn't pass anything for the second argument, so defaulted into an empty hash map. And when that empty hash map looked up for the key word, there was nothing in it, so it couldn't find anything. So let's say I wanted to actually put out a word by panning something in the hash map. So I do foo, and I say word is 2 fish. So here's a quick rundown of the syntax right now. Foo gets called on A, and the second argument is word, and then the second argument is a hash map. It has a key word, and what it points to is the value fish. So when I run this, wait, let's see. I meant foo 1 word fish, and now it says 2 fish because in the code I defined earlier, I said look up the key word, and if it's there, just put it in this string, which it did. Now here's a little bit of syntax. Let's say I put in another optional, hi, and the string by. This is not going to do it. This is not going to change the result, right? It'll change the hash map I handed to it, but it's not going to change the result because I'm not looking for the word hi. It'll still say two fish. But the point I wanted to make is optionals are so common within Ruby that if you omit these open, close curly brackets, it will read this as one hash map instead of 3 arguments. It will read it as first argument 1, second argument a hash map containing the key word value fish and another key hi with the value by. That's something really odd when you look at Ruby code, but this is just to give you guys background because you're about to see this happen. Yeah, question.
Could you have an argument following the hash map?
No, what do you mean following the hash map?
So like, could you have a good function like A and then a hash map?
Well, I've never seen anybody, like optionals are always defined at the end. I've just never seen it before. I don't know if it's impossible. We could find out right now, actually. Well, you could definitely do that if you use the curly bracket syntax to actually define your hash map. I don't know if Ruby will be able to infer it if I use the bracket list syntax. And I'm going to say most likely it doesn't, because this poetry mode breaks all the time if you have anything complicated. Yeah.
What if you want to like take 2 fish by? How would you make it out with that?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
If you want to output 2 fish by,
Oh.
why the only first?
Oh, if I want to do 2 fish by, and you mean like redefine the function and do that? Or, I mean, I could either redefine the function or append the word by to the end of, take by and put it in word. Those are my 2 options. Yeah. All right, are you good with that? All right. Okay. I know that was a lot, but this is the important part. So routing. How many of you guys here have taken 168 or are in 168? That's a few of you guys. This will go nowhere near the level of depth. You don't need to know anything about bits or the layers. The only thing you need to know is HTTP requests, which is at the application layer. But basically the internet, right? Your browser, every time you make a request, you pass in a verb with the request to tell the receiver what kind of action this is, right? And there's 4 common ones that most everybody uses. There are a lot more verbs that are defined by like the international internet people, but the 4 you're probably going to use are get, post, put, and delete. So just to quickly go over, a get request is saying, oh, retrieve me information about a resource. And this special thing about a get request is that the information, since you're only retrieving information, can be cached. With the request, only a limited amount of data could be sent, because you could either send data along with the request or in along with the request or in the URL. But when you make a GET request, you're not allowed to pass in extra data. You could only have like the 2,000 characters that are within the limits of a URL. And generally, GET requests are less secure, because when you make a GET request, and if you were to make GET requests and you need to pass in information like your password, is pretty much put in your browser history, so you don't want to do that. But GET requests are the focus of today's lecture. The second is a post request. So a post request basically is used when you want to create a resource. This cannot be cached. And because you don't have to put all the information in the URL, you could pass the information along with a data parameter made with the GET request. You could have an unlimited amount of data sent. So if you're gonna like sign into a website, you want to use something like a post request. The third one is a puts request, and it's basically, instead of creating a resource, right? It's, you want to modify a resource. It's basically the same thing as a post, but you're pointing to something that already exists, and you're saying, oh, change these fields to this. Last is the delete request, and all you do is say, hey, there's a resource that exists. I want you to delete it. Wait, before that, I know that was really fast, but do you have any immediate questions? All right, so here's a quick quiz. When you're going on Facebook's homepage, what request is it most likely making? 1 to get, 2 post, 3 put, 4 delete. So how I want you to vote on this is, if you think it's 1, put 1 finger up. If you think it's 2, put 2 fingers up. And on the count of 3, I just want you guys to raise your hand and just show me a number. 1, 2, 3. Okay. I see a lot of 1s and I see some 2s. Take a minute to talk with your neighbor why you think whatever you think. What? I got a little bit long. Sorry. Okay. Both are valid. Yeah. Okay. So after discussing, some of you might have changed your answer, some of you might have kept it. Just again on the count of 3, what do you think it is? 1, 2, 3. Okay, I see a lot more 1s, and if you guessed 1, that is correct. So basically, when you go to Facebook, right, what you're basically asking for is either 1, a login page. You're not submitting any information, you're just asking for a form, or the other one is asking for a list of people's posts and advertisements, which is a GET request. It's the default request that's made when you go like yahoo.com, we enter URL, it just gets it. All right. Where am I? Okay. So yeah, highlight it right here. Okay. Second part of the quiz. So how about when you're editing your name on your profile, you realize you edited it wrong, and you basically have a form in front of you, and you change, like let's say I messed up my name, I put Herbert, and now it's like, no, I want to switch it to Howard. I type in Howard, and I click the save button. What kind of request do you think it is? Just show me a number on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, take a minute and talk with your neighbors about why you think what you thought. All right, everybody, can I get back your attention, please? Guys, can you guys settle down for a little bit? Just on the count of 3, show me what you think now. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I see a bunch of 3s and some 2s. The correct answer is 3. It's a put request. And why is it not a post request? Because the difference between a put and a post is, for a post, the resource doesn't exist, and a put, the resource does exist. So when you already have a name that already existed on my profile, which is like in my example, I said Herbert, right? That was a resource that already existed. And what I said was, hey, there's something wrong with this resource. I want you to update the resource. That's why the answer is most likely a put request. And for creating a post, what kind of request do you guys think it is? On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I see a bunch of 2s because, yeah, that's right. So I guess, what are your questions? Yeah.
So like when you're on the home page, just like the login page, why does it need to get data from the database?
Oh, it doesn't. So a GET request doesn't necessarily mean that, what you want to call it, that you make a database access. So a static page, when you go to someone's static page, you're making a GET request. So if you think about a web server as a black box, right? Or it's just like, you don't know anything that happens. All I'm saying is I hand a URL and the type of request I'm making. And what this allows, like the purpose of this, it allows you to overload a URL. So a certain URL has different functionalities when you send it a GET request versus when you send it a POST request. Does that make sense? All right. So so what we're going to cover in the rest of lecture is these following steps. If you remember from the first lecture, we have this MVC model, right? And I said today's lecture is about static routing. So this is the path we're going to follow. First, we're going to start with our browser, right? We're going to make a GET request, right? In this example, it's like /users as the URL. And it goes to the Rails router, right? And then the Rails router will say, oh, this GET request matches with this controller function. So it basically sends that request and all the data in the request to the controller. The controller is going to skip step 3, 4, and 5, because right now we're just not messing with any database stuff. And it's going to go straight to the view. The view is going to generate us HTML and send it back to the controller. And the controller will complete the request and send it back to the requesting browser. So that's just the general overview of everything we're doing. Okay, so right now the plan is I'm going to actually do it in reverse, where I'm going to create the HTML page, which is the home. And just a note, HTML and CSS isn't the focus of this class. We will have a short amount of lecture that will cover it. But if you want to, if you're really into design and stuff, what you should probably take is the web design decal to learn more about HTML, CSS, and how to make your websites beautiful. Because I have no idea how to do that. And basically, the last point is that we're going, the location of all your HTML stuff is going to be in your app/views folder. Okay. And so in that MVC diagram, right, when a request goes to the router and it matches up with controller function, what do most static pages need? Does anyone have a guess? I'll just say it pretty much doesn't need anything. It's a static page. The controller might, yeah, it just doesn't need to do anything. It just has to say, oh, I got a request, find me the view, and return it. So earlier I talked about the important file routes.rb. The syntax for it to match a request is first type in the name of the verb, match it to a URL, put a comma, right? And this is the options hash that actually follows it, because get is a method. The first argument is a string of which URL to match, and the 2 is one of the several options that you can use. And what you pass into it is the name of the controller, put a hash between it, and then the name of the function. And I'll just basically show you right now, instead of like just reading off this slide, of how we're gonna do this. So first, I'm gonna go to tutorials folder, and then I'm gonna show you, to start a new Rails app, all you have to do is type Rails new. I'm gonna call it test app, right? And it will generate me all these files right here. It'll run bundle install, which basically says, look through my gem file and download all my dependencies. After it's complete, I totally forgot what the test app, yeah. Okay, this is my new Rails. This is my new Rails application. And I'm gonna open up my text editor right here, just so we could have a tree view of everything. So on the top is my test application, right? In apps, I have my assets, controllers, models, views. And config, I have the important routes.rb file. Inside your routes.rb file, what's auto-generated is just like a quick guide on how to do routes. But I'll just delete all of that just to conserve space. And what I'll do is say, hey, if I make a GET request, right? Someone hands me a GET request to /home. I'm going to map it to, had the option to, I should make this a lot bigger, huh? You guys see that in the back? Okay. I'm gonna match it to, I don't have a pages controller yet, but I'm gonna imagine I have a pages controller. Hashtag home. Okay. So what I'm gonna first show you is, I'm gonna start my Rails server by running Rails S, and it will automatically go to 3000, right? And I go to localhost 3000. I have my home page. That's already auto-generated if you don't manually set your home page. So what I said was, if I go to /home, I'm going to run a pages controller's, the pages controller's home method. But if I do it right now, it'll break, because I've never created pages controller. This error tells me that. So what I gotta do next is create that pages controller. How do I do that? Let's see. What Rails, I'm just gonna leave the server running here. But what Rails provides, which is very convenient, is something called generators. So if I run Rails G, controller, I take pages. This Rails provides me a command line thing to create files very easily. So right now you can see that running Rails G controller pages, I've created app/controllers /pages_controller. And let's see what that file looks like. If I go to app, controllers, pages controller, I have this empty file. It looks like it doesn't do anything, but because it inherits from Rails' application controller, it's packed in with a lot of magic right now. But it doesn't need to do anything. Next, I'm gonna rerun this and see what happens. See, now I couldn't find the home action or the home method. In my routes file, I specified that I would go to the pages controller's home method. So now I'll define home, right? Now it'll just have a method. It won't do anything, because in these static pages, it doesn't need to know much about anything. If I hit refresh, oh, I deleted an N. that was unexpected. If I hit refresh, now I have a different error. So I've defined a route. I've defined a controller, basically where to point the route and the logic to do. Since it's a static page, I don't need to do any logic. The last thing that's missing is the template, because I've actually never created the view. So my Rails server doesn't know what it looks like or what to send back to my client. So the last thing I have to do is go to my views. You see my views folder? I have a pages folder within it that's automatically created by my Rails generator. Because since my generator assumed that I had a controller for it, I have a bunch of views associated with it. And now all I have to do is put new, create a file called home.html.erb. And I'll explain what the ERB is, but you guys should be at least a little bit familiar with HTML. Is basically how you create the content on your website. And I'm just gonna put an H1 tag, close the H1 tag, and bam. There we go. This is our first static page. And just a recap of what happened. I went to my localhost 3000 /home. My browser made this request. This request matched a get. It was a get request, so it matched this get /home. And what I did was I sent it to the pages controller, hashtag the home function. The home function didn't have to perform any logic, but we could just make it perform arbitrary logic like puts 100. And after it ran its logic, it generated this view, hi, and sent it back to my browser. And that's how I got this. And I'll just rerun it. And for the sake of, if you look at my Rails server, my server logs all the, like a nice thing about Rails is it logs all your requests for you. So basically, some person made a get request to /home, which is when I hit enter on my URL thingy at this time. And it started this the home function on my pages controller. I wrote in the logic puts 100. So it wrote 100 onto my terminal. And then it went to pages /home.html.erb to get the layout. And that's what got sent to my browser. And that is this whole circle. So that's just the basics of routing. Another thing, so then the question is, how do I set my home page? All you have to do is go to your, wait, let me look at this slide. Okay. All you have to do instead of doing get /home and make this your home page is you just do root. Type in the function root. And it will basically say, whenever someone goes to my base URL, localhost 3000, go to my pages controller's home function. And so instead of that usual 3000 page you saw earlier, it's now this page that I made. Okay, yeah, question.
Like, the code for home function, there's no code, you have representing as such, and it inherits from another class. So this very automatically figure out which view loads, like load home.html.erb when you run out the home action in the controller.
Wait, repeat that?
Like when you run out the home, you execute the home action in the controller. Does very automatically figure out like which view to use? So,
yeah, it figures out which view to use by matching it up to the function name. So if I change my function, or like if I change this view name to, let's rename it. If I change it to home with 2 E's and I hit refresh, it can't find it. Because this is one thing about like conventional configuration. It will make assumptions for you, right? So it assumed it was named, it would match the function name, but couldn't find it. So now I have this missing template error. But like, let's say you don't want to follow convention. How do I actually load that page? So what you can do I believe you could call render on this, and you just do pages, home, wait, home, let's see. It's in my slides. Oh, I talked about it, okay. It's slash, actually, that's what it is. I hope this works. I usually don't, like, the common Rails way is to always go with convention. But if you want to go against it, there are ways to do it. And one of them is calling render. So render will say, like, there is an implicit render call to match it with the name of the function. But if you don't, like the name of this function is home and it doesn't match with the view's name, you could specify what your view name is with your render method. Does that make sense? Are there any more questions? Okay. I believe the last thing I wanted to cover was embedded Ruby and the params hash. Okay, so I'll go over this really quickly. So basically, you might want more data that comes through your GET request, or a URL that kind of matches, or functions that match multiple URLs, right? Let's say, and to do this within a route, let's go back to, instead of overwriting our home, let's have a separate /home, right? I'll add /:ID. When you add a colon into a route, it basically means this is kind of like a wild card, actually, that match whatever comes after the slash. It doesn't matter, just match it to that function and associate what matches with that slash with the value ID. And I'll try to make this a little bit clearer. So I'm gonna create something. I'm gonna create an instance variable called number, right? And I'll set it equal to params ID, and it'll render pages /homie. And I'm gonna put at number before I render the page. Okay. I'm going to go to my test application, localhost 3000. I assigned it to home, right? But I said, oh, I promised you guys I could put something past it, right? So I put 343224. The page still works. But what I wanted to note is right here in my console, you can see my GET request, right? I made home /343222, blah, 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 processed by the pages controller. And right here is something that new that we got, parameters. And in this parameters, I got a hash map that associates ID with that number 343224. And how that happened is in my routes folder, since I said anything that goes past it, tie it to the function, but hold ID, like hold that value that comes after the slash in the ID key. So, and if you remember my controller, I said put 343224. So that's why I printed out here. Why is this useful? Well, first, it allows you could overload like /users or something, or /posts, right? But when you come to, we're not trying to make static websites with Rails. We want to make dynamic websites. So this is where the ERB comes in. .erb means embedded Ruby. And within ERB, you could take stuff from your code and insert it into your view. So I'm going to do, to use your ERB logic, you have to do %sign equals at number, set sign close. And we're going to wrap this around an h1 tag. Okay. So when my controller reaches for this file, right, it starts parsing it. It's trying to create an HTML file. When it hits this percent sign, it's going, oh, I'm moving into Ruby logic. And since in my controller I define an instance variable at number, this view has access to that variable. So now if I go home/34332, I get that number printed out. So right now, I actually could change the content of my page, but just the words I am writing into the URL. And that's the power of using parameters and embedded Ruby. There's only two types of embedded Ruby logic. One is percent equals, and the other one is just percent. So percent equals means put that output of this value or this function into the code, and doing something like percent without the equal sign is for control statements like if at number equals at number mod 2 equals 0, and okay, I just wrote this code and this. Okay, so we have three lines of embedded Ruby. Two of them don't have the equal sign, only one of them does. And when you don't have the equal sign, it just runs the Ruby logic. So it's really just for control statements, like if, else, and like checking something, like basically checking something true or false. And the equal one actually prints the number. So if I put the number 1223, what do you think will show up? Nothing. And that's because I have this control statement right here. Basically, this checks to see if the number's even, if mod 2 equals 0. And 1, 2, 2, 3 is not even. But if I do 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, oh, now it looks stupid. Okay, that was supposed to work. If at number mod 2 equals mod 2. Actually, I have no clue why that's not working. Go back. If at number modulo 2 equals 0. Oh, I know why. It's because anything that comes through params is a string. So this shouldn't work, but that works. Yeah, fun fact, everything that comes through a parameter is a string. So if you want to convert it to a number, called .2i. All right, that's basically what was covered in this slide. Params, basically what I just talked about, when you pass data to access it, they're in anything that inherits from application controller, you'll already have a params hash that exists. And to see, like, you can look at your server to see what values are being passed into your params hash right here. And paths, the last thing that the second last thing that you need for your homework that you need to do. So path basically is a variable in your Ruby code that points to a page or points to a controller function. And basically, to check your paths, you just write rake routes. Rake routes is a rake command that says, oh, list me all your paths. And there's only one path right now. It's get/home/id. This one's actually completely useless for us. So a better example is if I did get lions to cats : hello. So right here, when I edited my routes file, the output of my rates routes changed. So if you see on this left column, I have something called prefixes, right? What this means is that any one of my Rails code, if I want to go to /lines, all I have to write is lines_path. And yeah, let's see, how do I show that? I need to make I've got an easy way to do this. Okay, so get lines, go to pages, lines. My pages controller, define lines, right? And then in my views, pages, I'm gonna make lions.html.erb, lion. So if I go to Rails Decal test app /lions, can't see anything. Oh yeah, Rails S, turned off my server. Localhost 2000 /lions. Now it just prints out the word lion on there. That exists, right? But I want to actually, instead of referencing something like base URL /lines, what if in my code I want to point to this? I'm actually gonna put something. Link to Rails is some magical action. It's a magical. So basically, all Rails has documentation everywhere. And it basically, your view helpers allow you to make like HTML elements with lines of Ruby code. So you could do a link to, oh yeah, this is great. So I can just copy this piece of code, and on my home, HTML.erb, I'm also going to show the piece of code right here, and I'm gonna write the method link to. This creates an HTML link for me, and instead of a profile path, I've defined myself a lion path and a link. This is just the string that goes on the link. So if I go to test app /home /an even number, let's see what's wrong with this one. Oh, lions, there's an S. Thank you. And now that function created me a link element. I was able to find the string lions. And nowhere in my code I said go to localhost 3000 /lions, but I just put in a variable called lions path. It's automatically pointed to my lions page. So you don't have to actually know direct URLs. Rails will make methods for you to help you organize your links. And in case you you want to specify your own custom name for a path, for example, you could add another option. This is the last option you need to know. As, let's say instead of lions path, I want to call it cats, right? So when I do rake routes, instead of the lines prefix, now the cats prefix exists. So lines disappears. So in theory, if I go to /home /an even number, it's gonna fail because there's no such thing as lines path anymore. I changed it to cats. So instead, I will go to the cats path, and this function should generate me back the link, and that's it. And that's pretty much all you need to know to do your homework. All right, Warren's just gonna do a quick overview about how to do HTML and CSS. You wanna?
Seems late.
We could. Do you want to do this?
Hello? Hey guys, so I have like a 10-minute bit coming up. Do you guys want to do that now or next week? If you do it now, it will be easier to do your homework, and you can make your homework look a little more pretty. Or we could do it next week, and you guys would probably have to figure a little bit out on your own. What do you guys want? If you want to do it now, raise your hand. Okay, cool. Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Warren. I'm one of the Rails Decals TAs. And today, or right now, I'm going to be talking about HTML. So how many of you guys know how to use HTML, or even very basically? Okay, sweet. And then how many of you guys know what the box model is for CSS? Okay, cool. So essentially, Howard kind of set you guys up today, showing you how to do routes and showing you how to link them up with controllers. So what that did is you can see like cool stuff like this. Okay, so this is actually a real live page. And what we're gonna do right now is actually change what's on it. So if you guys have your laptop out, I would definitely recommend trying to follow along. Initially, I was gonna just do a lecture and then have you guys work with me after, but let's just do it all together. So if you, where's Sublime? Oh shit, that. Is it I?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so basically, if you guys, can you guys all pull up your Rails project directory? Hopefully you might have one from like homework 1, or you might just have one sitting on your computer. Yeah, what's up? You can't open up localhost? You can't? Is that the question? Can you say it louder? Oh, okay, then you can just watch and I'll help you after. Okay? Does everyone know how to open up a Rails project? Does everyone have a, okay, you don't know? Okay, I'll show you. All right, let's just do it. So just go to a directory. So pull up your terminal. So you should have something like this. Find a directory you like. I would suggest like desktop or your Rails Decal folder. And then all you need to do is type in Rails new, and let's just call it HTML. That's a bad name. Let's call it website fun. Do this, yeah. Okay. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen this, but essentially what you did is you just let Rails do a lot of magic for you, and you just made a Rails project. Okay. Is everyone at this step? If you're falling behind, raise your hand. Okay. What's up? Open up the terminal in Windows. Okay, you just follow along and then we'll help you after too. You have to go through Vagrant. Okay, everyone else good. So what we just did is we just made a project called Website Fun. If you see it on the bottom left right here. Okay, so I want you to CD into that. Okay. Is your server on from the other one? Yeah, it is. Huh? You need shortcuts. Okay, so we are in the Website Fun. If you do ls, you should see the same thing I'm seeing right now. So like gem file, rake file, config. So this just means you're in a Rails project. Okay, so open it in whatever text editor. Open it in whatever text editor you use. So I'm gonna use Sublime, hopefully, if we have it. So go, oh shit. You guys probably are ahead of me. I don't know Howard's directory structure, so where would Website Fun be?
How you see the home? Howard, let me do this.
Here.
Yeah. I've been in tutorials. Sorry.
No worries. Okay. Okay. So has everyone opened up Website Fun in their text editor? You know that. Okay. Is anyone behind? What's the problem? You can't open it? Do you have Sublime or Atom or any IDE? You typed Rails and use something? Oh, just do Rails space new space website fun. The name really doesn't matter. And then hit enter. Okay, does everyone else have a open up Rails project? Yeah, okay, cool. So as you guys know, in this project, we can type in Rails S, and we will have a lovely website pop up, which is like this, right? So this is essentially Rails' default website. They pop this up when you don't have anything. Okay. And then, so let's really quickly just go over what Howard taught you guys. Does anyone know what the next step is? Make the controller? Cool. All right, so. Okay. So I just popped open another terminal window. What that did is, this could be useful in the future for you guys, is I have my server running and my terminal. Sorry if that's a little small. But now I can like simultaneously edit stuff while having my console open. So I got you. Okay. So we want to do Rails G. So G means generate. We want to generate a controller, and we want to call it pages. Okay. Not a colon here. Is that what's wrong? Okay, there we go. My bad. So there's no colon there, so it's just Rails space G space controller space pages. And then a lot of magic happens again, as you guys can see. So whenever you see this stuff, magic is happening. Okay. Is anyone behind right now? No? Yeah, what's up? Oh, you can, yeah, you can just run bundle install if I ask you to. Okay, so we go back to our code, and basically if we look in app controllers, we now have a pages controller here, okay? We didn't have that before, that's why we just ran that command. And let's just call, let's make a method called def.me, and then just end it. Oh, yeah, of course, my bad. Okay. So as you guys just learned, this is like a me action. And then let's go over to our routes. If you guys do Apple P and using Sublime, you can just find your files really, really quickly. So I never actually go through the directory structure. If you're using Eclipse and other IDEs, sorry, I don't know what to do about it. But that actually is in config and then routes down here. Okay. So does anyone know what we should do for routes? How do we get the route to go to this me file?
So you type in root, and then you do the folder, the directory it's in, and then hash.
Nice, beautiful. Okay, so one thing, let's just, so if we refresh now, Rails is going to go, all right, the root, let's go to the me action, and then it hits an error because we didn't actually make a me file. So we got to this root, we went here, and we try to render a me file, but that wasn't in the views. So go to your layouts, go to your views, and then go to pages. Right click. Okay, click new file, and create me.html.erb. And then make it, okay? So we're almost back to where we started in just like 5 minutes. So just bear with me, and then let's just put in, just copy what I'm typing, div, and then hi. Okay, yeah, what's up? I created a new file in the folder called pages under views. So views, pages, and then create a file called me.html.erb. Okay. And then now go to your browser, and we're back to ground zero. Okay. If you guys figure that out, I'm sorry for making you wait. We're about to start the new stuff. But everyone should have a Rails project, and they should have a me route, and they should see the word hi on their screen. Yeah. Yeah, of course, man. Any other questions? Yeah.
I kind of got lost after this.
Okay, so we create a me file under views, pages. So to create a file, just right click pages, a new file. And then you want to save that as me.html.erb, and then you just want to type in this code. All right, cool. And then just make sure you can go here and refresh, and you can see the word hi. Sorry, we're just going through this so that the next step can all be interactive. Okay, cool. Now, I want you all to go to Facebook and look up your favorite person and click their profile picture and then click open image in new tab. Follow along, like do this too. And then grab this URL right here, okay? You don't have to do Howard, you can do whoever you want. Do yourself, that'd be chill. And the reason we're doing that is because I'm gonna show you the power of HTML and CSS, okay? So make sure you have anyone's profile picture in your clipboard. All right. Then go back to here and put in an image tag like this. Source, double quotes. Put in that lovely URL and then close the tag like this, okay? Now, oh, this character looks kind of dangerous. Oh, that's not chill. Oh, this isn't ERV, that's why. Anyways, so now you have, whoever you just picked, you have their picture on your website, okay? Now there's a lot of big problems with this. Namely, first of all, Howard's way too big. He should not get the center of attention like this. Number two, high is like, if you wanted it centered, it's not centered, right? So that is where CSS comes into play. Where's my slide deck? Okay, so I just showed you guys two tags. One was div and one was image. So a div is just like a fat box. You can put whatever you want in it. In fact, I could even put my image in this div. And I mean, it is actually different, and you guys will learn why slowly, but it'll look the same for now. But a div is just a box. And then an image is just an image tag. The source means where we're getting it from. You can have it local source, or you can have it like an external website like we just did. Then the next part is the, ooh, that was it, just kidding. So how is HTML done? So a lot of people, you guys might have heard this, a lot of people, especially in the CS community, say HTML and CSS is very easy compared to other stuff. And although this is a controversial issue, that could be true because of the fact that HTML is a declarative language. So what does that mean? So an imperative language is a language where you can define new things and change the way stuff behaves. But a declarative language means there's a set of rules that you have to follow to do stuff. So essentially in HTML, there's a set of tags, which are like these, that you have to use to generate whatever you want to generate. And that is why some people think it's easier, because less is up to the programmer to decide what to do. There's already a lot of rules defined, okay? And then we can also likewise go to WP Schools, CSS. And then there's also a whole set of CSS attributes, which is all right here. All of these, so like there's selectors, so there's all these different CSS rules here that is once again declarative. So there's all these rules that you have to learn and then follow. Now, it's not that easy because there's a lot of rules in different ways you can use them to make really beautiful sites, but that's the reason why people say that. But it makes learning really easy. So what I want you guys to do, if you've been able to follow along, is right-click your picture and click Inspect Element, okay? If you were lazy and didn't want to do that, just hop on over to Airbnb and then right-click their image and click Inspect Element, okay? So essentially now when you hover over stuff, you see, okay, let's just sit here. You see all these colors, okay? Now what this is Chrome has really good support for doing HTML and CSS, and they're actually showing you everything in Airbnb's website, or actually our website as well. So as you can see, this is exactly what we told Rails to generate out, okay? So this is really useful later on when you guys are making stuff, because you can test out stuff in the browser. So for example, I can actually double click here. Actually, I don't want to do that. I'll show you guys that trick later. But so now let's actually get to adding some, making Howard look better, okay? So let's add a class, and we'll call it Howard. And then I want you guys to go to Assets, and there's a folder in here called Style Sheets, okay? Pop open pages.scss. This was generated automatically for you by Rails. And then do dot Howard like this. And then let's do width 150 px and height 150 px. Okay, so essentially this is a class. You define it in your CSS sheets, and by putting on the class here, we're saying this image I want to conform to that class I defined. So now Howard's smaller. Okay. So if you kind of can think ahead and extrapolate, I really just showed you one of the main skills of HTML and CSS, which is applying attributes to your elements. Wow. So all you need to do to make stuff look good is make a class and then change it. Okay. It gets complicated later because like there are a lot of little rules you're going to learn slowly. But for example, you can type in border 1px solid, and we can type in, let's just do just bright red. Okay. So just like that, there's now a border around your picture. Okay. So there's a lot of more cool things you do. So now I want to show you why I want to inspect element. So when you guys first start learning how to do HTML and CSS, you're often going to be like, hey, how come Airbnb can make something look so good and mine looks so bad? So it's a great question. And actually, when you start learning, good designers are ones who can steal the best. So you're like, this color looks pretty dope. All you need to do is inspect element. Okay? And bam, we have the color. That's right. Screw Airbnb. So just take this color and then put it here. And just like that, our border is now going to be Airbnb's color. Okay? So actually, I would recommend a really good learning tool, and I'm not kidding at all when I say this, is just inspect on different websites. With different websites is code. And you can actually just rip their attributes and put it onto your own and see what you get out. Okay? It's actually really easy, and you can do that for a lot of your projects. Your final project, I definitely recommend doing that. You'll learn a lot really fast, and your colors will look a lot better than what you'd probably output on your own. So that's actually sums most of it up. The last thing I want to tell you is pretty much the only theory behind CSS, which is the box model, which I asked you guys about earlier. So every element in HTML is a box. Believe it or not, a text element. So let's pop in one of those. All you need to do is, instead of doing hi here, you just do span. And then for fun, so just so you guys can see the proof of concept, we'll just put on a funny. And then we'll give this a class. And we'll do size. So this just made text size 50, so it's bigger. So just like that, you can change stuff, right? So basically, that itself is also a box. So a div, a span, an image, they all start with the element content. So in terms of an image, it's just an image. In terms of the div, it's a box. Then you can add something called padding to it. So the reason I just want to do this interactively is you guys can see it actually take effect. So we can add on padding. Before I do that, look at the text. So right now it's kind of squished next to Howard, right? So we can add padding of 50 pixels. And the text is farther. Now, if you want to visualize what just happened, you inspect element, and you see that green, that is your padding. So that padding is 50 px, okay? And if you want to change that in your browser, you just run over here, and you can actually just increase this or decrease this live, okay? So this is actually a trick that most people who do HTML dev use, because you can change a lot of stuff directly in your browser, figure out what was good, then port it back over to your code instead of doing your code, coming back and then refreshing over and over. All right, so that was the padding. Now, if we add a margin, then we can even add a property right here. This has a margin. So now you see the orange yellowish color, the kind of gross color. That is the margin. And the other thing is border. So we kind of played around with that earlier, but we just all we need to do is put in the border. And just give it black. Oops. No. Okay, so now we have a border. So let's look at that. So we have padding, border, margin. And that is exactly what this slide says. Okay? So when you kind of go into your HTML exploration, just remember that everything falls down to this order, and that will help you decide where to put padding and where to put margin. Just remember that margin comes outside a border and padding comes inside a border. Like, that doesn't sound like a big deal, but you might run into a problem later. You're gonna come running to me and you're like, why is the spacing outside of the border or inside? And this is why. And a lot of people don't know this. Like, a lot of you guys raise your hand. You said you knew HTML, but you don't know the box model. That's totally chill, but this is something really useful to know because, like, if you get the concept behind it, deving in HTML will be a lot easier, okay? And this applies to everything. We can do this to the image. We can do this to a ton of other tags. On top of my head, you'll be using divs, H1, H2, H3 tags, which are just header tags, and you can change those more later. But we'll get into more in the coming weeks. Yeah.
Why, when you're inspecting the element for the margin, it only shows it on the side, but then this box model on top of them?
Yeah, it's a good question. So actually, when you do, when you give margin, it by default only does the sides, but you can actually change it to margin top, and this would be just the top.
So,
Oh, what? What did you say? Sorry.
so when you just only put margin, but not like top right, bottom, order.
Yeah, so there's a ton of different variations. There's a margin right, margin left, margin top, margin bottom, and then you can do like margin horizontal, stuff like that. You have to just search it up and play around with it. If you have questions, you can definitely ask me. But it's a declarative language, so when you have a bug, it's most likely because you didn't follow one of the rules or you don't understand one of the rules correctly.
You're saying margin, it's pretty margin, which is like the left.
Yeah, that'll just do the sides, yeah. And then also there's a really cool website, how to center in CSS. So this is like a huge topic. This guy actually posted his website on Hacker News and got hella upvotes. I was super salty because I should have done that. But if you ever need to center in CSS, go to this website. It's surprisingly hard, honestly. So that's why this site actually is really cool. And are there any other questions? No? Cool. Thank you guys for coming, and we'll be here for questions. And yeah, now is this free lab time? Oh, check in. You got it?
Yeah. Wait, can we get a round of applause for Warren? This is his first time lecturing. We're gonna do it. Let's take him off. Let's see. The last thing I have to do is hand you guys the check-in code so you get attendance for coming. Just information. The homework, the second homework is up. If you just go to the website, click assignments, click homework 2. There's a link to it. And just do either fork it. Wait, you could fork it, then get clone it, or get clone it now, work, and then just change the remote. It's probably easier just to fork it. So that's what I recommend. And how to, okay. I guess I might as well just show you how we do attendance here. So if we go, oh crap. Actually, I just turned myself into a student, but I need to turn myself back into instructor. So just some background information about stuff you're gonna learn later. Heroku is a way to host websites. And what you can do is like you push your code up to Heroku and Heroku starts your Rails application. Heroku also provides these tools where I could run my Rails command line in my locally. I'll just have to specify which app I want to connect to because you have multiple apps on your account. So I'm just running Rails C on my Heroku application. And since it's remote, it just takes a little bit of time to connect. Yeah, so for my console, I'm just gonna say, hey, users, find by email. This is actually provided by Rails. So I just look for the user with my email, howardxchen@gmail.com. That's me. And that's my user object. I can just say add role for current semester. And the type of role I want to add is a role instructor. And I don't have, like, you see how I only have profile sign up now? When I refresh this, now my admin dashboard. And this is the magical part of the website you guys will probably never see. I create a new check-in code, and I'm gonna our check-in code for today is HTTP request, all one word. I created, let's see where, let me go back to, wait, HTTP request. See where people have checked in with that. I'm going to enable it. And now I play the waiting game. So when you run on the cheap version of Heroku, everything goes really slowly. Because, yeah, we're not made out of money. So HTTP request. So now this should be enabled. If you're logged in on our website, if you go to railsdecal.com, on the home page, it will ask for you to enter a check-in code. All you have to do is enter HTTP request, submit it, and you're done. That's how our attendance is counted. And I'll turn this off in about 5 minutes. So do that now. Is it not? It's just dead? Oh, so also another thing is when it's really cheap, so basically it's only like half a processor running, and if all of you are connecting at once, it might break it. Okay. Wait, is it just not loading? Wait.
Yeah. Yeah, so we probably laid over a black box. Yeah, it's very complex. That's why it's hard. Like, it's not as easy.
Oh wait, is it working for you guys? Okay, if it didn't work for you guys, try to refresh it. Or maybe wait for 2 minutes and then refresh it. Wait, who was able to check in? All right, okay. The rest of you guys the server will free up soon.
See you guys next week. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming. What? I couldn't quite hear that. Yeah, it's just a Postgres database. Heroku defaults to Postgres. Yeah.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. I think it's the only thing it supports. Damn. Yeah, do you have a Windows computer? Did you run Rails server -B 0.0.0.0? Okay, so, wait, okay. Can I just show you a link? So if you go to our Rails, GitHub, let me turn off my YouTube thing first. I don't know where it went. Oh, it's right here.